Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I just wanted to show some more modern books. This one was a kind of an impulse buy. Uh, I looked it up when someone had it up for auction. It was a series. I'm not sure if it was complete, but here's number one, Seven to Eternity. The next one I bought is this Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man. What's unusual about this one is you see the P. It looks like it's a printing error. It's white while the rest of the logo is yellow. And this is the only one I've seen. It doesn't look like out of ink, because I would think if it's out of ink, the whole lettering would be kind of off color. But this one, the P just doesn't have any yellow in it at all. This is Spectacular Spider-Man 23. Here's a comic I've had since childhood. Back then, I remember it was worth about $8. I have a whole bunch of these. Not a whole bunch, but I had 3 of these at one time. Here's a first appearance of Cable. I bought this from the local comic store when they had the small business sale. I think you get one item for 35% off. So I spent it on this before he was announced in the movie. And I was also a New Mutants fan when it was out, but I stopped collecting in the early teen numbers, so I was never able to get all the way up to here. When I restarted collecting again, put that back up. When I started recollecting again, I didn't buy in the New Mutants book, and that's the later issues are the hot ones. Here's a Spectacular Spider-Man number 1, fairly common issue. This picture, or this cover with the tarantula striking the wall, is very reminiscent of one of the Amazing Spider-Man covers, I believe, where he's doing something very similar. I found this in my collection. I have no idea how I got this. First appearance of Jane Foster as Thor in an alternative story. Marvel Tales, first appearance of Spider-Ham, and I either watched a video or read an article. I think I watched a video, but you know how CGC, they only give it credit for just the first appearance of Spider-Ham, but it's also first appearance of Hulk Bunny, Captain America, and Goose Rider. And here's an interesting story. This is a childhood copy. I walked to this local 7-Eleven store about a mile away, and I bought this off their rack. And it's also a Michael Golden cover, and Michael Golden, I believe, in my opinion, is one of the best artists, comic artists that ever have lived. I would put him up high, maybe, for me, the best artist, maybe. Here's an Amazing Spider-Man 361, first appearance of Carnage. I remember when they announced something about Carnage, not the movie, but back then when it was about his first appearance and he got popular, this comic started to take off. I think I paid $1.75 for it, or $2 in a back issue bin a few months after it came out. Here's another comic book that I walked to the 7-Eleven about a mile away from where I used to live and bought this one right off the rack. I believe that that particular 7-Eleven is now like either a pawn store or a gold, or sells gold or something. Here's a comic book I bought off the from the local shop at the flea market when there was a shop there. There's two first appearances of this in this one, Titania and one other person. I believe these two ladies are the first appearance in this comic book. Here's a Daredevil 131, first appearance of Bullseye. I can't recall how I got this comic book. Usually a lot of the key issues I remember how I got them, but I just looked in my collection one day, just like the What If with the Jane Foster's Thor. I just found this comic book. Here's another Marvel Tales #1. I think from the same comic dealer. I bought 2 copies of this, and you know, it wasn't really worth anything until the Spider-Verse movie. I haven't seen the movie, but I heard Spider-Ham is in it, and this is what drove up the price of this comic book. I wish I had bought more during the time. I've always liked this cover. You know, it's reminiscent of around this time. You know, DC had Captain Carrot, and I thought that was a pretty decent book. This was, I'm sorry, this is the one that's the first appearance of Titania and the other lady, Secret Wars. I bought this off the dealer from the flea market, also when I was a little kid. So number 7 is actually the first appearance of the Spider-Woman. I guess the newer Spider-Woman. And lastly, I have this copy, Spawn #1. This is a pretty common issue. This one in particular has a history. A long time ago, I bought a Flash Annual #1, which was advertised as very fine or very fine plus, or very high grade. And this was back in the days, you know, when a lot of people didn't post pictures of their product they sold. You just had to rely on description because cameras weren't, digital cameras weren't that prevalent. And so this high grade 8.0, 8.5 plus, maybe even advertised as 9.0, but it's high grade. So I paid a premium for that Flash Annual #1. And when I got it, the Flash Annual was like a 3.5 or 4.0 grade. So the seller, he must have felt guilty and put in this Spawn #1, which was worth about $4, $5 at a time, to compensate me for the $30 or $40 I overpaid for his Flash Annual #1. That was very kind of him, very thoughtful. The other thing I want to say about Spawn #1 is they printed about, like, what, 2.5, 2.7 million copies of this comic book. So when all life on Earth ends, there's nothing left. If aliens ever visited Earth, or if new civilization, new intelligent life ever develops, this is probably what they're going to find. You know how now we find dinosaur bones? Future generations, future civilizations are going to find Spawn #1 because it's so abundant. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to bring some better quality videos.